human rights. So at most of the time, they're well versed with their mood problem. The only basic problem with law students nowadays is they're not very clear with the basics. They know their mood problem well, even better than what the judges know, but they're not knowing the basics of it. So when I ask what's the difference between human rights and IHL, and to be honest, almost 80 to 90% of the time, people are not able to tell me what exactly there is a difference. Where they are talking in terms of additional protocol, in terms of how to limit it, in terms of cultural property, emblems, everything they know. But if you just ask the basic of subjects, what's the difference between a human rights law and IHL law? And no doubt, as you can see, there are a lot of complementary provisions as well. Human rights law is basically for peacetime, and that's why you call IHL as war law, because it's only applicable during war. So IHL is not applicable during peacetime, whether it's a armed conflict, international level, or non-international armed conflict. In only those two conditions, IHL will be applicable. So it needs to reach to a particular threshold, and then IHL will be applicable. In all other peace times, you have human rights law. So you have right to life, you have freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, right to marry, and all those things, play and leisure, and all those things are also there in UDHR. So if you see there, you will find that okay, all these are listed there in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights too. Whereas if you see IHL, it's basically for protection of wounded and sick, and at land and at sea, and prisoners of war, and also for protection of civilians, the way you will conduct hostilities, and all these basic things are there in IHL. And there are certain complementary provisions which is there in both human rights and IHL. So to be very honest, if somebody asks me what's the difference, I say where human rights ceases to apply, IHL starts. So when human rights will not be applicable in certain situations, definitely IHL may be applicable in that situation. So there are some complementary provisions related to right to life, provision against torture, ill treatment, fair trial. And if you just pick up anything, if you pick, let's take torture, then you find torture happens in human rights regime also. Somebody is arrested and being tortured, third degree treatment is being given to that particular person. It happens in nationalism and also at international armed conflict. So you have example of Guantanamo Bay, where prisoners are being kept as a US prison, and they also face a lot of torture. If you just go on Google and if you type Guantanamo Bay, you will find a lot of the images which show that okay, the people over there, the prisoners over there are being tortured. So definitely, these are complementary provisions in both of the law, human rights, as well as IHL. And to basically just start a very brief how it started. So uh, somebody may say that okay, it's only Geneva Convention from where it started, or the Memory of Self-Frame of the Book of Henry Dunant. But it started way back. It started from Islam. It started from Hinduism. If you see the text, if you pick up any old sculpture, you will find okay, there are some mentions of just war. No doubt, with the passage of time, the standards and the modules and things have changed, but still there was some kind of legislation that were in kind of morality or religious based, or kind of the principles that you follow just toward norms, you will follow that particular time also. And one very different thing about this particular legislation is even if you are not party to it, it will be applicable on you because it's a customary international law. So, and how something reaches to a customary international law is again a different topic, but on a very brief, something which followed by all the nations for a very long time, and it reaches to an extent that if almost everybody is following, that becomes customary international law. So this has attained as a customary international law, even insurgent and belligerents if they are there. So if belligerents are there, insurgents are there, they are also supposed to follow international humanitarian law. You need not to follow in case of terrorists. Terrorists is a whole altogether a different issue. But in all other non-international or international armed conflict, you have to follow IHL. It cannot be suspended or limited at any point of time. Also, there is one very important thing that if one party is not following IHL guidelines and principles, or the customary international law principles of IHL, you cannot say that, okay, we will not follow it because the other party is not following this. So it's not a reciprocity that gives you a right. Okay, okay, somebody just. I hope I'm that you cannot. and a notes are there or something, you have to stop. Then otherwise they can make something on screen. Okay, so it cannot be suspended or limited at any point of time, even if other party is violating it. You have to follow IHL, and it have two different set of liabilities. So you have individual criminal liability and you have a combined responsibility or a combined liability. So we'll discuss at a later point of time after we are done with the history and all of this. So basically, the most important person for the systematic this Geneva Conventions and International Committee for Red Cross, or basic say he was a founder of ICRC, and if you say that he was also one of the torchbearer for international humanitarian law. He was a businessman. He visited Selfrino and he has witnessed the war of Selfrino, and he has written a book called Memory of Selfrino. And in Memory of Solferino, he mentioned how brutalities happened with people who are going to support, who are providing humanitarian assistance. If you are a nurse, if you are a person, you are injured, you have been not left, they are being killed. So in all those situations, he said that, okay, I want that there should be certain organization which should be international and impartial. And without finding the root cause of the problem, like what is it war, who started, who is right, who is wrong, rather than going on these principles, if there can be an organization which can provide humanitarian assistance to people at large who are in conflict, then this thing he advocated. And he advocated that there should be a non-governmental, it should be international, non-governmental, and non-partition. So you need not to be any party, not to be of any particular, government body that controls this. And then finally, he has given this principle in his book also, Memory of Self-Reno. And after that, ICRC was formed, and ICRC basically is kind of a custodian of international humanitarian law, whatever challenges are there. So nowadays, you find that there are challenges regarding to AI, use of artificial intelligence, use of killer robots, use of killer drones, suicide drones, and all those questions have been answered and been discussed by ICRC. And soon maybe there can be a kind of a treaty or something which is a multilateral treaty to stop the use of AI. So whatever challenges are there, ICRC just research on those challenges, have a discussion and deliberation, and try to put this into the bracket of just war. So all the new technologies that are there, all the new things that are happening, they try to frame and they are try to put it in the principle of just war, principle of international humanitarian law, and that's how ICRC regulates everything. So if you see that before going to the history, well, let's go through the history and then I'll discuss with you the four different Geneva Conventions. So if you just go with the history, six secret teachings, ancient China said, do not fire to what people have accumulated, because this will not give you any military advantage. So you should, and this is a very important principle of IHL also, that you should only target military objects, and you should target something which gives you military advantage. If there is something which is not a military object, as well as it is not giving a military advantage, in that case, you should not target that particular property, particular place. So this was there, and do not destroy their houses, nor cut down the trees or grave sites or altars, because this is not giving you any benefit. You are doing there to fight a war. You are there to dominate your enemy, and these are not the way. These are the way to create problems for them, and this is not giving you any advantage in terms of any military advantage. Next is Code of Manu. So he says, when he fights with his foes in battle, let him not strike with weapons concealed in wood, nor with barbed poison, or at the points with blazing with fire. Because see, there are two ways in which you can win a war. Either you kill the person, you capture, or he surrenders. So there are ways, killing is not the only option which can make you win a war. There are other options also, and with those options you can also win. And he said that if you are using a tipped, poison tipped arrow or something like this, there is a hardly chances of a survival because of the wound and also because of the poison. So please do not do this. And this was there in Code of Manu. Also with blazing with fire, so you have fire thrower and all those, nowadays being used before recently Pakistan some 1.5 years back also used against India, fire flamethrower. So do not use this because they are also indiscriminate. Which part, which property they are burning, whether it belongs to military or civilian, they will never be able to distinguish. So never use these kind of weapons blazing with fire. Next is from Khalifa Abu Bakr al-Siddiq, the first Khalifa after Prophet Muhammad. He said, refrain from betrayal, perfidy, or mutilation. Never kill small children, old men, or women. So all this is also protection. If you see the protection related to civilians, the Fourth Geneva Convention, where it is very explicitly mentioned that you should not kill these people. Cut or set fire to palm trees. Never cut fruit bearing trees because for everyone it's not giving you any benefit. Never slay a goat, cow, or camel except for food. So the food as purpose is allowed, otherwise not. If you pass by people devoted to worship, leave them to do so because people who are worshipping are not a threat to you. So this is what is a a virtuous thinking, a high moral thinking at that particular time. And also Malik ibn Anas ibn Malik al Amr al Asbahan, Islamic scholar again. In no circumstances shall women and children of enemy be killed, even if they are used as human shields by soldiers. So this is again a very high moral standard principle of war. Even if people are using the small children or women or old and sick people as human shield, you should never kill them. Because you want to kill your enemy, you have to kill the human shield also. No, that should you should not do. You should try to figure out certain other ways in which you can dominate or you can win the war, but you should not kill them at any point of time. Then this is Neger oral tradition. Ethics of war was taught to every young man, noble for his future as a warrior. He was taught never to kill an enemy on ground. So if anybody falls on ground, this is the principle where you can see that horrors the combat. People who cannot take part in war because they are injured or they are unwilling. So either they have suffered, they have surrendered, or they are unwilling, they are injured, and then you should not kill them. So horizontal combat options, if you see, it's very clear here that if somebody falls on ground, he admits his inferiority, you should not kill him. Anybody who is on ground, you should not kill that particular person. So for a broader term, if you see horizontal combat, anybody who is sick and wounded or unwilling to take part in the hostilities, you should not kill them. So basically, this is how the development stages of development that happen. So first, traditional rules of war. So we have gone through the religious texts. We have also gone through some oral tradition of Senegal and all, and some written structures and things are definitely talking about war laws. Then these laws of war become more authoritative with the rise of centralized power in states. The states also, because king used to think that they have a Raj Dharma, they have a king duty, they have a king Dharma that they should protect people who are in war, and they should also give certain types of relief, even if the even if the soldiers belong to the enemy side. So these rules, traditional rules of war, become more crystallized, and over the time, these rules become law that you have to follow this. So there are, even if you pick up Mahabharata, you will find there are a lot of laws. Okay, you will not fight in the night because you will not be able to distinguish your enemy and a civilian. So you should not do it and fight in the night. You should not. You should fight one on one. You should not stab somebody from back. You should not. If you are on horse, you will fight with somebody who is on horse. So it kind of a war code was there. So Mahabharata have a lot of these principles where they are talking in terms of what you have to do in war. And after that, in 1864, the first Geneva Convention comes for protection of people in wartime. So basically, these are the four Geneva Convention: wounded and sick at land, shipwrecked, wounded, and sick at sea; Convention for protection of prisoners of war; Convention for protection of civilians. There is a convention for wounded and sick at land, and shipwrecked, wounded, and sick at sea. Why not there is any convention on wounded and sick at air? It seems like a silly question, but can anybody tell me why there is no convention related to air? If you can unmute yourself, you can just reply.
Sir, answer might be lame, but you cannot measure the amount of area in a particular region. So you can't restrict it to a certain region, making any law about it.
Okay, thank you. Well taken. Anybody else? Any other option? Any other opinion about this? Why there is no treaty related to wounded and sick at air?
At air, sir?
Yeah,
Because wounded and sick at air, probably they would land anyway. So something with respect to land is sufficient to cover it.
yeah, definitely. Either they will land up in a land or a water. So for both, there are
Correct.
treaties. So you do not require a treaty for air as such. That wounded and sick at air, you do not specifically require a treaty for that particular purpose. That's why these two treaties are there. And then prisoners of war is there because a lot of people have been taken as prisoners of war. A lot of people surrender during war. So a law related to them, and for conventions for protection of civilians, because there is a lot of casualty that happens during war. A lot of civilian objects, civilian property, and civilian life is lost. And with advancement of weapon technology, there is more threat to civilians because the range and area of the weapon that they use to cover is increasing day by day. So even if you're dropping it in a military area, it may cover a large part of the area which also belongs to civilian. So convention for protection of civilian, and no doubt there are certain obligations on everybody who is on war, who is on armed conflict or hostilities with each other to follow these principles. So this jus in bello and jus in bellum. So rules of international law applicable between parties to armed conflict and related to armed conflict. Jus in bello. Jus in bellum is use of force, rule of international law, governing the resort to armed force. So we'll not go much in detail, otherwise we'll be stuck in this. And different laws for armed conflict, for non-international armed conflict, four Geneva Conventions, common Article 3 of all the Geneva Conventions, additional Protocol 2, and other treaties. And also customary international law will always be there. International human rights law is also there. And then also national laws will protect. So also in India, we have a law which protect, people during war, internal conflict and disturbances and all those things. So almost every country will have certain level of these natural protection as well. When it is international armed conflict, then all the four treaties, additional protocols, and again the customary international law, international human rights law, and national law regimes will be over there to protect people who are in hostility or who are civilians or who are being affected by the war. So international armed conflict very clearly distinguishes from internal disturbances and tensions. So there can be a lot of situations where you find that there are some rioting or there are some civil wars situation, but at a very small scale. There is no organization as such. Nobody is claiming to be a different group altogether. There is no commander who is coordinating this group. And that's how you say that, okay, it's an internal disturbance for a time period against a particular, let's take a state government or at a national level or something. But if they are reaching to a threshold, if they cross the minimum threshold, in that case, you can say that, yeah, there are international armed conflicts. So there are a lot of countries you will find that the new normal for war nowadays is that there are a lot of conflict inside the state. Sudan, South Sudan. There are a lot of these type of a conflict where there is a rebel group, there is a high contracting party, which is from the same state, which is not a different state. So, but they have a certain level where they have a sphere of influence, where they have a control, and they have people with them. They have armies, and also they fight with the state to have a separate identity and something like this. So, there's internal disturbances and tensions when they reach to a threshold. What is a threshold? Nowhere defined. But when it reaches to a threshold, that nation, the state, the sovereign state is forced to say that, okay, this group is there which wants to have so and so policies and so on nation. Till the time it is not there, you cannot call it as an international armed conflict. Sometimes what happens that certain terrorist groups do certain activities to bring the eye of international legal regime as well as international countries on their conduct. So uh, in in Afghan war, we have seen many terrorist activities, even when they have destroyed cultural properties, only to get attention of international community. But it was not taken as international armed conflict. It was just merely a terrorist attack. So non-international armed conflict protection regime I have already discussed. So now we came to main thing about what are the most important principles of IHL. So even if let's take you are not able to understand anything till now, the next three, four things are very important. These are the basic principles on which the international humanitarian law is based. So first is distinction. So parties to armed conflict must distinguish between civilian and combatants and between civilian objects and military targets. So first of all, who is a combatant? The word used between civilian and combatant. So combatant is somebody who is carrying arm in open, who is organized, and so there is somebody who is a commander who is organizing this kind of armed rebellion or armed conflict. He is wearing a particular dress and he is carrying arms in open. And he is not doing everything, all these activity because of self-defense. Okay. If he is doing all this for self-defense, he's just carrying arms in open, but he's not firing on anyone. He's not taking part in hostility. That is the only action for self-defense. You may not call that particular person as combatant. Combatant status will only happen when he has a organized behavior, when organization is there, he's carrying arms in open, he's wearing a particular dress code, and then he's taking part in the hostilities. So he is actually being a part of the war. Then only you can say that this person is a combatant and he is a non-combatant or a civilian. So you should know on whom to attack, whether a combatant or a non-combatant. Also, when we are talking like, in terms of the modernization of weapon technology and all, when we are talking of AIs, artificial intelligence, we also talk about the blue black box system, that why AI has come to a conclusion we never come to know. In any case, so whether through machine learning or feature learning, if we can feed things, we are not sure with the outcome of it. We cannot guess that 100% this will be the outcome. The machine can still be, AI can still be confused because of certain reasons, which we do not know. Because we also do not know why artificial intelligence comes to a particular conclusion while doing a particular act. So that's also like, as one of the criticism for AI and all the drones and autonomous weapon system and technologies, that they may not able to distinguish between civilian and combatants. And maybe let's take you say that, okay, we will feed information that if somebody is carrying an arm or this kind of dress is there, then there's really a chance that, okay, the combatant is wearing a dress of a civilian after just torturing him because the dress or something like that. Or maybe a civilian is just carrying an arm to save himself. Whether this kind of all the decision making power is there with the human being, but not with the AI. AI will definitely be confused and there can be a different outcome. And that's why whenever AI and autonomous weapon system, there is a debate. This is always being discussed that whether they are 100% reliable, that they will be able to distinct between the combatant and civilian object and military targets or not. If not, then we should not deploy them during war, because then it's breaching the basic principles of international humanitarian law. Again, the very wider scope, we will not discuss much. Who will have a liability? Let's take there is a killer robot. He kills 5 civilians. Who have the liability? The commander under whom this robot was working, the person who programmed this robot, or the robot itself. So there is a huge debate about criminality of autonomous weapon and autonomous weapon systems and all. So we'll not discuss them. But basically, the first important principle of international humanitarian law is distinction, that you distinguish between a combatant and a non-combatant, and military objects and civilian objects. And civilian objects should never be, will never be a point of target. So you will never target civilian objects. So let's take this is a clear depiction of distinction example that okay, the first one is combatant, carrying arms in open, wearing a dress. Second is a military headquarter. Then there is a tank or a tank mine or something like this. You can definitely have an attack on them, not a problem. And on next hand, on other side, you find that there is an old person, a child, and a woman, and there are civilians, so there should also be there should not be a point of target, and we should not attack on them. Also, you have seen a cross sign, red cross, and red crescent. So Red Cross, why there are two different protective emblems of the same status nowadays? Red crystal is used. So third one, because this was started, or the whole mission of ICRC in IHL and all the debate discussion and everything started from Swiss, where the major population is Christian. So this cross somewhere created, some kind of a problem in mind of people that why we should use a sign which represent Christianity. So, okay, a different sign has been given, which is red crescent. So there again, some kind of doubts and question on them that okay, crescent is also used by a particular community. So why we should use this? And then finally, a sign emblem has been given, which is red crystal that anybody can use, and nobody should have any problem with this. But still, if a country is using crescent or a red cross or red crystal, the level of protection is same. So basically, it have a purpose that it reflects that this property, this place, or this person is involved in humanitarian assistance. So if you find there is any building and there is a Red Cross sign over it, you can understand very simply that okay, this sign reflects that this building is being used as a hospital or for humanitarian assistance. Maybe a food is stored or something like this is there, so you should not attack on it. If a person is wearing this red cross, you can very easily understand that this person is not the point of attack. We will not target this particular person because he is providing humanitarian assistance. He will provide to the other nation, and in a worst case scenario, if my own people are injured, this organization will also provide support to them. So I will not attack on them. So there is both inductive and deductive use of these emblems. The next emblem that you see is a blue shield, blue and white. Blue shield is for protection of cultural property. So if there is any art, there is any museum, there is any religious place, so Taj Mahal, Bangla Sahib, Jama Masjid, war memorials, India Gate, all those places will be cultural property. And cultural property basically is known as that it is for mankind. It does not belong to a nation. You cannot say that Taj Mahal belongs to India, so we can anytime demolish this and just do whatever we want with Taj Mahal. No, we cannot do this because this belongs to the whole mankind. This is Seven Wonders. There are a lot of properties that are protected by UNESCO. No doubt we have seen that a lot of these cultural property in past wars also during World War I, World War II. We have seen even Germany returning a lot of these cultural property which they have stolen in terms of their paintings, the ideals, and all those things to French after World War II during Nuremberg trial and all those things. So this is for protection of cultural property. So anything which have a significance in art, anything which has a significance of religious significance, cultural significance, you will not attack on it. The next is three dots. Three dots is for basically for anything that is hazardous. So if any nuclear power plant is there, or if anywhere the nuclear bomb is kept, or something like this is there, which can be catastrophic to a lot population and a part of the country, then you should not attack, and this should be protected by three dot emblem. So if there is, let's say I am a commander or I'm a soldier, if there is on any building there are three dots, I understand that this would be dangerous for me as well as a larger part of the population, so I don't do that. Next is limitations. Limitations related to that weapons which cause superfluous injuries and unnecessary sufferings are prohibited. So if I have to talk about some prohibited weapons from past, one is Dum Dum bullet. Dum Dum is an area in Kolkata where these bullets were made a long time back, and these are also expending bullets. So when they enter your body, they expend, and the chances of your survival is very less. Whereas I've already told that winning a war is possible by a lot of means, not just by killing, maybe by injuring, maybe by keep taking you as prisoner of war. So all these methods are there to win a war. Killing is not the only option, and if there is a certainty that this can cause a killing, then it should not be allowed. And on that ground, the expending bullets were refused. Also, there is another type of a weapon which is called cluster munitions. So there is a small munitions. Every cluster munition, they're based on chain reaction. So first, it's a kind of a ball. So a big ball will have 20 small balls. 20 each 20 small ball will have 10 small balls. So like this, it will have, and almost 20 to 30% of the munitions will not blast. So they will blast at later point of time whenever an animal or a human being or a civilian will touch it. So that's why using cluster munitions is also not allowed. Same with the biological weapons and chemical weapons, because they are giving unnecessary suffering. So these are also prohibited. Also, weapons which are laser blinding weapons. So I just show a laser to everyone and everybody is blind. All those things are not allowed, because it is said that okay, there should be some respect left for each other after the last bullet is fired. It's open, you still have a chances to be friends with the country, with the people. You still have a chance to reconcile. You still have a chance to work together for development, for humanitarian assistance, for economic development, for social, political, religious, and cultural developments. And if you are using such kind of things, then the reconciliation becomes really tough. Even if you're destroying cultural property, that could be one of the reason for outbreak of another fight or another tension between one community with another community, maybe after 200 years back. So if you, let's take, there is XYZ property which belongs to so and so community, you have attacked that particular property, and after let's take 300 years, somebody just provoked people of that community that this was a destroy. These people destroyed our cultural property 3 years back, 300, or let's take 3,000 years back. There is again a tension. So you should not do certain things, especially attacking cultural property, as well as causing superfluous injuries and unnecessary sufferings. If you're doing this, there is hardly probability of reconciliation between two nations and two different groups, high contracting parties. Next is military necessity. You will only attack something which is giving you a military advantage and which is a military necessity. If there is a school, you will not attack a school because it's not giving any military advantage. It's not a military necessity to attack on a school. Same with the college, same with the hospital. But let's take if the school is used for keeping or for weaponry. So all the weapons are kept at school. Definitely you can attack the school in that case. Again, there is another principle of proportionality, keeping in mind the proportionality. So you can attack certain properties which are not very clearly military targets when they give you certain military advantage. So they are not military targets, but yeah, because of the nature, they are being used as some part to supplement the military process or the hostilities, you can attack on them. So basically, anything that gives you a military advantage, you can attack on it. And if you have signed the Rome Statute, you can be punished for using excessive force, for targeting non-military objects. So definitely there is also a hard law part of it, international criminal law, which can punish you for individual criminal responsibility as well as the command responsibility. So basically commanders and all, they have command responsibility because on their command their soldiers have worked. If a soldier without any command from his commander, his own wish, is doing any violation of IHL principles and which is also falling under Rome Statute, genocide, crime against humanity, or war crime, he can be punished by ICC. No doubt, International Criminal Court, two requirements needs to be fulfilled. First, the state must have signed and ratified Rome Statute. Second, it works on principle of complementarity. The state is unable or unwilling to prosecute. Unable because the person is very powerful or something. Unwilling, they do not want. So if a state is unwilling or unable to prosecute a particular person for a crime done related to genocide, crime against humanity, or war crimes, as defined under Rome Statute, he can be punished by ICC. But if let's take there is a case where there is a trial going on at the national level, then ICC have no jurisdiction on that particular case. Next is proportionality. So proportionality is basically that what proportion. You see that there are only 2 soldiers, and for them there are around 3, 4, 5, and 9. 9 tanks are there. For killing only 2 people, you do not require 9 tanks. Maybe if 9 soldiers were there, that could have been perfect with a light weapon. So they have a MMG machine gun, but you have something which will destroy everything. So there is also, see, there is a property which is a cultural property. There are civilians, there are kids, there are women, there are old people, and there are civilian objects, their homes and all, and you will definitely destroy if you're attacking on them. So you have to use the force in proportional manner. That okay, this much I want as an outcome of my attack, and these all weapons will give me that desired results. So with all permutation combination, I should not use excessive force. So that is also one of the underlying principles of international humanitarian law. Next is this is what I was talking about, the red crystal. So you have Red Cross, Red Crescent, and Red Crystal. The Red Crystal is 2007 we got this emblem. So it have both protective and inductive use. If any car is having it, any property is having it, or any person is having any of the 3 marks, there should not be a point of attack. You will not attack on these people. These are some of the selected developments of international humanitarian law. So no doubt the first treaty is there, Geneva Conventions, wounded on the battlefield. Then outlying certain projectiles. So definitely projectiles were refused. Some kind of a projectile will give excessive suffering will not be used. And this is second Geneva Convention, Geneva Gas Protocol. So certain kind of gaseous weapons and gases are not allowed because we know what had happened in World War II and World War I, where there have been use of gas chambers and all. So definitely at that point of time, it was very relevant. Nowadays, not much uses there, but definitely there is still it being used a certain part of the globe. So some kind of gaseous and chemical weapons are being used. Then 1954, Hague Cultural Property Conventions to protect cultural property. 1972 Biological Weapon Conventions to prevent use of biological weapons during war. And then the next important is anti-personal landmine. There are 2 types of landmine. One is anti-tank, and other is anti-personal. So tank is used for killing people, killing tanks, and anti-personal for killing people. So what happens during war? The countries lay down a lot of these anti-personal landmines, but as soon as the war is over, they do not take them out. So what happens that it do not discriminate between a civilian and combatant. Whosoever will step over it will die. So there is a lot of civilian casualties, and that's why it was thought that okay, we will make this kind of convention where we will stop use of anti-personal landmines. So we will ban, because at the peace time when there is no conflict is going on, no problem is there, and there is a loss of life, that should not happen. And that's why this convention was there. Then International Criminal Court, Rome Statute 1998, and Rome Statute, because of it, the International Criminal Court came into picture in 2002. Then optional protocols related to child soldiers. Just hold on. So next is anti-personal landmines ban. International Criminal Court. So in 2002 it came into picture. Then optional protocol for child soldiers, because a lot of these countries are using child soldiers. We have seen in Rwanda and conflict, even Rwandan genocide, we have seen child soldiers. We have seen in Sierra Leone, we have seen in Cambodia, we have seen in Bangladesh and all also the child soldiers. So using child soldiers during war is also prohibited, and this was one of the reasons why this convention was this protocol was being made. Next, I was talking about cluster munitions. So the convention is in 2008 to ban use of cluster munitions. There are a lot of other indiscriminate weapons like terrapods and all, floating landmines for or floating mines for ship and all. We are not using them also during war. These are definitely not related to the course. There are some of the options related to career options in IHL. So you can go for research, either with the ICRC or with any other organization. You can also do an academic research on IHL and its principles and all those things. ICRC, Amnesty International, UNHCR, and all those bodies are also there, international organizations where you can work. Academics is there, development sector jobs and scholarships are definitely there. There are a lot of scholarships to go abroad and do your LLM in IHL and human rights and IHL and conference of both of them. So these are there, and so this is from my side. Now I want to have discussion with you people. If you have any question, you want to ask anything, and I'll also share the PPT with the team. So there are some of the websites where you can just go and you can find out scholarships. And also my website is listed in the end. Always these are the websites where you can find jobs related to IHL and scholarships related to IHL. So now the forum is open for question answer. Do not want to take a monologue. So if you have any question regarding anything related to not just to IHL, but anything related to human rights and anything, you can ask.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, this is Imran. I don't think if anyone has question, maybe let participant take some time. So before they ask any question, I have one question. Right, if you see the international humanitarian law principles, these principles are being challenged in the current scenario of this pandemic. So am I audible?
Yeah. Actually, there is a lot of disturbance
Yes.
from your side. I think it's
Yes.
because of the air or something. Fan maybe you're using.
I think let's take some question, then I will ask my question. Right.
No problem. You start with the toughest question you have.
It's not about the simple question that I wanted to ask. How do you think that in a future, are we seeing any changes in the principles of international humanitarian law, seeing the situation of pandemic that COVID-19 has brought? Because the Security Council has recently brought a resolution that for ceasefire all over the world. So do you think this will change something? The pandemic will change something? I should.
See, the basic principles and the notions, like the important essentials of IHL and all those things will not change. Definitely, there will be more onto biological weapons. There will be something stricter that I think will be coming in next 10 years or 15 years regarding biological weapons and chemical weapons and all, and even to use of them in peace and wartime both. So not just IHL will change, also there will be a change in some human rights regime and human rights law system because of this pandemic. And on a on a broader note, as I see this pandemic, there is a lot of problem between, at least with one country and the world. So at one side there is one country and all the world is at the other side because of certain reason, which may lead to certain problems at later point of time, because there have been death of thousands of people around the globe, and countries also try to sometimes just make benefit of these situations. So even China has sent a lot of these you know material for COVID to different countries, which were even faulty. Country is now focused on only to save their people, but as soon as everything will be settled down, there will be some kind of a repercussion. No doubt it's a very big country. uh, a huge power. Then also in five, it's veto power nation also. Nothing much can happen, but there will be definitely some kind of things that you are saying, like in India, boycott of certain type of a material from a particular country, and all those things are starting. So there will be certain challenges, but not much in international humanitarian law with COVID. Only I think there will be more stricter in terms of biological weapons and chemical weapons, and definitely a new kind of a thing will come up soon where more restricted laws or some kind of changes will be made to biological weapon and chemical weapon conventions.
Thank you, sir.
I have a question if I may ask because I'm unable to send it in the chat.
Sure, yeah. Ask.
Good evening, sir. Actually, I have two questions, one relating to the webinar that we just attended and one in relation to human rights. So the first question is, if someone doesn't follow the obligations under the IHL, what are the repercussions for those states in particular? And in particular, I'm also asking about the commanders and the individual soldiers. Will they fall into the category? Because if you're talking about international criminal court or the courts that are following, they usually take into account states as their parties. So how will the second part of the question, that is the commanders and the soldiers, will fall into that?
See, there are various system how you implement IHL. First, just I'll take 1 minute. I'll be back. Really sorry, everyone. As everybody is working from home, so there are a lot of calls from office at any point of time. Earlier, the working hour was 9 to 5, so my human rights were that I can have a leisure time after 5. But now the working hours are 9 to any time. They can call and say that okay, this is being left. Let's just do it. Okay. So coming back to your question, you have two set of protection level for IHL. One is at national level. So if you are violating certain principles of war, maybe your country has a definite structure and court martial and all those things can be there for protection at national level. For international level, if you have, let's take, you have signed a particular treaty and conventions, most of the part of IHL is on ethical grounds. So there is no hard law for it. Until unless you are falling into genocide, war crimes, and crime against humanity as defined under Rome Statute, and also you are supposed, your country is supposed to be a part of, ratified the International Criminal Code, then only something can happen over there. Also, the third level of protection that is over there for IHL is the soft law protection that, okay, you can seize your diplomatic relation, you can seize your trade relations, sanctions are there, embargoes can be there. All those things are also ways to show that, okay, some countries following or some is not following the essential principles of IHL. When you're talking in terms of commanders, commanders are only responsible when they have a control on the people on whom they are commanding. So it's not that even if there is, let's take a war and I do not have any control. I may be a commander, but I do not have any control on the conduct. And there are 90 people who are working fine, and there are only 10 who are doing so, and I have no clue about it. You cannot even make me liable for command responsibility. For command responsibility, you have to fulfill that, okay, I have a level of control on them. I know about what kind of IHL principles they are breaching, and I could actually control them, even if I know, but I could not, with all due regards, with all my powers and force, I could not stop them. Then also I may not be responsible as command responsibility. In terms of individual criminal responsibility, all the soldiers fall under this, that if they violate IHL principles, they will be responsible for individual criminal responsibility. There have been many criminal courts which have punished in past, whether it's Nuremberg trial, Tokyo trial, ICTY, International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, International Criminal Tribunal for Yugoslavia, Special Court for Sierra Leone, Bangladesh Criminal Tribunal, or even ICC. There have been a lot of these punishments given to people on of individual criminal responsibility. So you have basically three set of protection. One is at your national level, which says that okay, you have to follow principle of just war. Other is at international level where ICC is there, but definitely principle of complementarity you have to follow, and also your state should have ratified that particular court treaty. And the third is the soft law mechanism that for any human rights and IHL violations you can use.
Thank you,
Anything?
sir. Yeah, I have one more question, which is in relation to human rights. Actually, I have been reading about gender neutrality of rape laws in India. So, do you think it will be in consonance with the human rights perspective in India and in relation to the constitutional values that are enshrined in the constitution itself? That is the basic fundamental right. If we bring into gender neutrality in India, because then equality somewhat might be not at might somewhat be at stake in that sense if we bring in gender neutrality.
Uh, See, one thing I'll just discuss. I'm actually a gender right activist also. So most of my life goes on running about stereotype campaigns and awareing people about sexual harassment, good touch, bad touch, and all those things. One thing that I'll say is that there cannot be a equality among unequals. So if whatever you say that women are empowered, they are doing very good. They are doing very good. They are maybe out of 100, there are 10 who are doing better than men. But what about their social acceptance? Is it better than men? No. If a woman is diverse, if a man is diverse, both are seen in a very different way. A man is seen as maybe as a victim, whereas a woman may be seen as opportunity in Indian society. Even in terms when a woman is raped, it's not a problem that in India people every time question on the woman character and moral virtues, why she was out, why she was wearing such kind of clothes and everything. So social acceptance, political participation, economic, everything you see, women is not equal, and you cannot have a same set of laws for no doubt I'm not saying that there is no chances of rape of a man, because if you see the rape definition, it not only says a penal penetration is rape, anything any foreign object if you are inserting in mouth, vagina or urethra, if let's take at least other two options are also there for men, it could be amount to rape. That could happen. But if you make this law gender neutral, then maybe a case that I say that, okay, XYZ girl is there, I like you, you have to sleep with me, otherwise I'm going and I'm filing a complaint that you have attempted rape on me or you have raped me. So, because I have also a level of support from society that nobody will say anything bad to me. The reputation of girls, that's why every time, everything, the curfew time and everything for girls is controlled and restricted. So that is one thing that I say that till the time, no doubt there are misuse of it. There are a lot of being questioned that, okay, rape laws, sexual harassment laws, all these are being misused. But if you make them gender neutral, it will lose its sense why this is there. This make no sense if you're making it okay. Men can also be sexually harassed. Then I can complain about any woman, and I can, because acceptance level of her and me is very different in the society. Also, I may be politically and economically, physically, definitely because of biological factor, I'm strong. But politically and economically, I'm also strong, and I will subordinate this woman, and there are a lot of other violations of rights. So we cannot make, this is one thing, that for unequal people you cannot have a same law. Mani, any comments on this?
Actually, I totally agree with you, and that was my plea. Can I add to this if you may allow? Basically,
Yeah, sure.
as what I could understand, you were referring to the inclusivity factor, which is lacking when it comes to women in the society, and that is one of the reasons why we shouldn't be having gender neutral laws in India, right, sir?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
All right. So I also have a question. If you permit me, can I ask?
Make sure it's not very tough, huh? There are 40 people looking at me with a hope that I'll give a reply to all the questions. If it's tough, I may not. Anyways, yeah, continue.
All right. So I just want to know about the opinion you have that in this current time when we are facing this pandemic, and the first and the foremost priority should be to contain COVID-19 or to treat it. Uh, what do you have to say about the countries where these health centers are being destroyed by war?
See, that's, I think, nothing bad could happen more than that. That in a COVID situation, this is happening. Also, there are a lot of issues related to refugees during COVID, where they are staying when refugee centers and all, because they cannot have a social distancing. Hand washing with a good water is not possible, because for drinking also they not have good water. How possible to have a 10 times or 20 times hand washing? So there have been challenges. War definitely brings a lot of things, including refugees, including displaced people and all, and they are definitely a challenge. COVID-19, a lot of, because the support system is also not there. If you see, the world is trying to protect their own people, ICRC also trying to do whatever they can, but at how many places and what all they can do? So if there are health centers at places, at countries where there is war going on and all, it is making things more vulnerable and miserable, rather than, and there is, again, anything that will have to happen after some time. All the punishments, everything that will happen, whatever you are doing, you will not be spared in most of the times, but this all will happen after a particular time when things are settled. And that's what I'm saying, that after, when COVID will be over, we'll see a new world where there can be a dominance of any XYZ country who has, just try to, who fought well with COVID-19, and there will be also a different level of game related to power economics. We see the South Asian continent is terribly under certain kind of a situation where one country is attacking on other and having, some use of force. Aggression is there. China is having aggression on almost all the neighbors. You see Taiwan, you see India, you see Japan. Everywhere there is a problem, and till every time now, the center point nowadays is that, okay, you have to fight with COVID, but as soon as this is over, I think there can be little more problems for international humanitarian law, and definitely war zones where hospital and all these places are destroyed is definitely a serious concern that I think IHL has to look forward, and there needs to be certain more strict provisions for this if there is any pandemic situation in future.
Thank you, sir. Do we have more questions, please? Anyone? Imran, do you want to ask any question?
I guess we have already crossed time, so I think we are late also. So
Yeah.
5 to 7 minutes. So I think participants, if they don't have questions, they must be getting bored after 1 hour. Because all of them are
I know that the retention power for people usually is 40 minutes, and that's why I somewhere like 48, 50 minutes I finish up my lecture. IHL is such a subject, even if I have to teach proportionality or protection of cultural property, it can go for 3 to 4 hours. And I can show a lot of videos, I can have a lot of songs on war and all those things, but I know that,
All right.
there
So
is
there's a
always a limit.
request by one of the person. Okay. So can you just share your email ID in the chat box? That would be really good.
If you have just seen full name, just type Google, you will get everything related.
All right. That's it.
I would just like to inform all the participants that Sir is the founder of Knowledge Teas. And Knowledge Teas is providing lots of website and also LLP, I guess. Sir, am I right? It's LLP.
Yeah.
Yes. So it is a organization, LLP, which provides lots of opportunity to law students. Right. So just Google Dr. Niteesh Upadhyay or go to the website of Knowledge Teas. You will get more than email IDs, like the whole profile and everything.
Still, the Google is not reading me as doctor. It's still
All right.
reading me as Niteesh Upadhyay, Niteesh Kumar Upadhyay. So just figure it out. You'll get my contact, and on Knowledge Teas, you can also drop me a message if you have anything to ask, you want to do something, you want to know about career perspectives in IHL or anything. You just drop me a message, it will reach to me, and I'll reply as soon as possible. Also, if there are faculty members and they want to work with Knowledge Teas, they are most welcome. You can ask for my number from Imran, and you can contact me any point of time, and it will be happy to work with everyone. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. So I can leave the meeting now? Imran, with your permission?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes.